unfortunately, many of us will never feel that we have enough money to retire. And you know what? That could unnecessarily be robbing you from years and years of joy in retirement. And that's why in today's video, I'm going to talk about why you may need a lot less to retire than what you think. Okay, so let's go for a quick walk and we'll talk about this. You know, the first misinformation that a lot of us suffer from, and I want to point out, I'm at a war memorial today, and I'll explain why at the end of the video. But the first reason why a lot of us will need less to retire is, you know, the rules of thumb that a lot of people use just don't work. For instance, just for easy math for me, if you're making $100,000 a year today and you use the 4% rule and say, well, how much do I need in my retirement accounts in order to replace that? The amount's going to be $2.5 million. And you know, the reality is fewer than 10% of 65-year-olds in America have even $1 million when it comes time to retirement. So if you're waiting to get to $2.5 million, you're going to wait a long time, and I don't want that to happen to you. So the first thing is, you do not need to replace your salary. What you need is to be able to replace the income that will allow you to have the lifestyle that you want. And those are two very, very different things. For instance, in my example before, the 4% rule at $100,000, $2.5 million it says that you need. But what if you're only spending $50,000? Or what if in retirement you only feel you need $50,000? Well, that instantly brings you down to just over $1 million. It's $1.25 million. So there's a big difference there. So that's the first one. This is going to be the video of buts. And here's the first but. And the other but is, if you're spending $50,000 a year, if that's what it takes for you to have a good retirement, you know, if you're retiring before you take Social Security, you only need to provide that full $50,000 until you get Social Security, which 1/3 of Americans start taking Social Security when they're 62 years old. Now, it's important to know that the average Social Security check is $1,800, just a little bit less than that, $1,800 a month. But that's for everybody, including people that took their Social Security early and people that took it late. For those people that take it early, the average check in 2022 was $1,200. So there's a big difference between the average check and when you take it early. So you have to factor that in. But again, using my example, I just dropped my notes. Using my example, Using my example, you only need to supply the excess capital above Social Security. So, and if you have a rental property, it gets even easier to meet that need. Okay, here's the next but. But I think the 4% rule is very, very conservative. It was developed by a gentleman by the name of Bill Bengen, who's a super smart guy. There's a lot of rigor that goes behind the 4% rule. But what Mr. Bengen was looking for is, at a 50 to 70% allocation to the stock market, with the rest in intermediate term, relatively short duration, 2, 3, 4, 5-year treasuries, with a portfolio, US treasuries, with a portfolio like that, how much could you take out a year over 30 years and have a very, very low likelihood of never running out of money? And when I say low likelihood, it's less than a 10% likelihood of running out of money. And again, there's no guarantees even with Bengen's rule. But you know, having a 90% plus likelihood of never running out of money is a great safety net. It's a great security blanket. But the price of that warmth and comfort, it might be 3, 4, 5 years of you working additionally longer to save up that money. You know, if you take out a little bit more, let's say you take out 5%, there's a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Guyton that took Bill Bengen's work and says, you know, this feels awfully conservative to me. What if In years where the stock market is down, I do not increase the amount I take out of my account by inflation. And there's a whole lot here. The goal of this video is not to go into a lot of detail, but to give you things to think about. So Guyton said, can we change the 4% rule and get a little and squeak a little more return? He found 5 to 6% you could get by basically, instead of increasing the amount you take out every year by whatever inflation was last year, only in years when the market's down, you say, you know what, I'm not going to take that inflation adjustment. Just like at work, your boss might say, you know, there was a recession going on, we can't give you a raise this year. So that's a sacrifice that I think a lot of us are willing to make. So that's the next factor. You know, you might be able to get 5%, you might be able to get 6%. Now, Dave Ramsey would say you can take 8% out. Now, I think Ramsey is getting aggressive. You know, the stock market, depending on which period of time that you look at and the type of assets that you're invested in, Ramsey would say the stock market on average does 12% a year, and you certainly can find periods of time that's what the return, long periods of time that's the returns that the market has had. You can also find periods of time where it's been less. So I think 8% is a little aggressive, maybe a lot aggressive. Okay, but let me go through the math with you. If you say with Guyton, let me back up before I jump into Guyton. Again, you're going to take money out before you get to Social Security and then after Social Security. So you don't need that full to use Bangans. You don't need that full 4% all the time. So maybe until Social Security, you take out 6% according to Bangans' rule, right? You modify Bangan and say until Social Security, I'm going to take 6% out. Then after Social Security, maybe instead of 4%, I'm going to take 3%. But you take more out in the early years and less out once you start taking Social Security. So let's say in the early years before Social Security, you say that you can take out 6% a year. If you take out 6% a year for that $50,000, you're going to need $625,000. I may have these messed up a little bit. But the point is 6 or 7% is going to be $625,000. And the high level here is there's a big difference between needing $2.5 million to retire and needing a lot less, maybe potentially as little as $650,000. So there's a huge variation there depending on the amount of clarity and clarity on your plan, clarity on not having surprises along the way, and then the security that comes with having a buffer, right? And so those are the trade-offs that we're making. And I know I was throwing around a lot of numbers here, and this is why you should work with a fee-only financial advisor. But the thing I want to share with you that's really important is, as humans, we are adaptable. And where I'm at now, I told you I was going to circle back. I'm in a country that was occupied during World War II, and this is a memorial to the local residents that took up forces to try to rebel against their occupiers. Unfortunately, they lost. They were squashed down with great oppression and great anger and great vengeance. And these people risked it all for what was important to them. And I say this just to say there are no certainties, right? None of us know. God forbid, I hope we don't have a war. As I record this, there's the Russia-Ukraine situation going on, but none of us have certainty on our retirement. And I think this strive for absolute certainty can rob you from years of your retirement. And I don't want that to happen to you. And another thing is, I want you to look at this video here where I talk about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can, because I want you to get every day of joy and freedom and relaxation that you have earned. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.